morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I've got no idea what time you're watching this, but I'm trying to get it out early for you as it is 7:33 in the morning over there on Sunday. I hope you enjoyed the full moon and the start of the new year on the Mayan calendar. 7:30 p.m. over here where I am, and it is, even though the typhoon is gone, beautiful weather yesterday and today, very, very strong breezes. Unable to see the new moon because there is still a lot of clouds in the sky. So now that we have gone over the general introduction part, I have for you on screen here the VIX. And it's here for a couple of reasons. I'm kind of going to bob and weave a little bit because with the VIX, discussing volatility, but as well as risk. When you're out there taking a risk trade, which I've been putting the definition of risk in the email the last few days, it's all about the possible outcome and the risk-reward ratio towards it. And I'll get over that as we move, but let me get started with you here so that we can move forward really quickly, and we will start out for where we have been starting out, which is back on Wednesday, May 21 watch, the email that went out about the Wave 4 drop zone targets. And as you simply scroll down, it coincidentally happened to also be 4 green weeks back then. As long as SPX holds above 56.65, there should be nothing to be worried about for the Wave 5 bounce to all-time highs or higher into June, July to produce. And that's what we've been getting. Very clear. Everybody knows that we've been getting it. We now have 5 green weeks in a row, with that previous week ending there on July 11th as we went into OPEX Friday. Less than 1 point to the upside. But it's still green. Still 5 green weeks in a row. And bring it on after that, going into where we sent out the beginning of last week, over 1 week ago today on Sunday, talking about how until SPX sees minus 6201, 6334.76 is alive. The blind bulls, I'm talking just completely blind, are looking for 6380, 6460. Blind bulls see 6353, 6371, which are this is a 361.8 extension from the Great Depression bottom. And I shared for you a very clear image of this. How 3274, 3210, the 161.8, coincidentally happened to be where the COVID top is. 4822, 4781, the 261.8 extension, coincidentally happened to be the 2022 top. And now here we are at 6370, 6353, having not only been broken above, but having been closed above as we went into the end of the week. Right there, 6388.64 with the, and I'll get onto this as far as the risk reward VIX, the 27.29 range after the 20.74 range on Thursday, with a very, very rare unicorn of 5 green closes in a row. Nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with the weather. It's David Goggins. It's the David Goggins algorithm that we have been in for the better part of, call it a month. When you think that they can't do 25 push-ups, they do 27. When you think they can't do 29 push-ups, they do 31. And it's the way it's been. And as you can see, since the World War III end, back on June 23, the range has continued to be very, very compressed, which for someone with a bigger, broader, wider view knows we're processing into a top. Because it's not happening immediately, a lot of people are getting disgruntled, and this is the reason why there are going to be a lot less people that you know typically in the chat room moving forward, because I have 3 professionals that are going to be joining me.
Come on, Barbie, let's go party. Come on, Barbie, let's go party. Come on, Barbie, let's go party. Come on, Barbie, let's go party.
No, I don't mean that we're shutting it all down and we're going to go start doing, TikTok videos dancing. No. 2 of the individuals I'm not yet able to release any information on, because tomorrow, Monday, I have an agreement that I need to sign with the 2 of them. The other one, he's actually been in the room for a little bit more than a year already. Somebody I know personally who's retired over here in the Philippines. He was a Goldman Sachs hedge fund manager. And with the 32 trade program, he's been extremely impressed with the methodology of it and the actual transactions that I have been putting out for alerts on the 32 trade program. So I have given him the authority to post in the alert room. He will be posting in the alert room. Whether he replies in private messages or not, I don't know, but his trades that he will be posting will all be leaps. I can guarantee you that. His trades will be leaps going 6, 9, 12 months out. What stocks they are, I don't know. I'm not telling him to watch anything specific, but that's what it's going to be. And as you know from the alert room, which we're going to get into in a little bit, we keep this clean. Nobody posts in this alert room. Me. I used to let Elongate post in here when he was still around, while he was still alive. Rest in peace, brother. And I miss him. I miss him dearly. I miss his vision, being able to bounce ideas off of him. Well, now I have 3 people that are going to be joining with me, and they'll be joining the service, and things are going to be changing. They're going to be changing quite a bit. So bring us back on topic here. Going into the Monday through Friday, July 21, July 25, 6,300 close risk. Until SPX sees 6201, 6334.76 is alive. And as I shared on there, my primary focus for this week is that QQQ minus 560. That's the one thing I'm looking for. And unfortunately, as you already know, you got that there on Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday, you had your little dips down there below 560. And because of where we were and because of why we were, they were immediately bought up, because over on the SPX, as you saw, we came right down to that 62.85. That's it. End of the day, finished, done, and we moved forward. 5 green weeks in a row, with the third week in a row less than 1 point higher. 3 weeks in a row less than 1 point higher. So is what it is as far as that goes. But I want to get on the subject of risk before I move forward onto the charts. And I'm actually going to leave this here for a second so that you get a little audio clip. So give me a second here, and I think this will work for you.
Anyone starting trading is going to lose money for several years. You're looking for a career that pays a lot of money. Everyone trading wants to make a lot of money. You're competing against extremely smart people, and it's essentially a zero-sum game. So you're trying to take money from really, really smart people who are trying to take money from you. And when you start out, they're going to win. You're going to lose money. And but if you have the discipline and you're careful and you learn how to be objective and you try not to be greedy and you use stops, you use profit targets, I believe it's something that you can do.
Now, 2 years ago, well, a year and a half ago, I posted that video about doing the credit spreads two and a half years ago, and looking for your 50 cents. Looking for 50 cents, getting your 5%, doing one contract, getting up until you've made your $500 and moving on to the next contract, minimizing your risk as you move forward. And I've had a number of people come out and say, yeah, but. Well, you're absolutely right. Yeah, but. I have posted the safe edge every single day, other than where it was already blatantly well understood. The risk trades, if you stuck with these risk trades and you traded them exactly the way that they would have gone, doing only one contract, you're down $700 since the 4th of July. So doing 5, doing 10, doing 20 is what it is as far as you go, because you have the knowledge about how much money you're trading. But if you're revenge trading, trying to get back to other prior losses, again, I'll play that audio clip for you if you need to, but it simply is that the smart risk is where you learn which risks that you're willing to take and which ones to avoid, and you start developing risk controls, based on your experience. And together with it, you start capping the deployment of capital for each individual strategy. Same thing like here. When I put out for you there on Monday, weekly candle, nothing's blocking 63.34. First thing in the morning, we're talking about that. And then we come out there until, where was it? Right around 2:30, when the algorithm changes towards the end of the day there. 63.30 puts, they're $2.10. Well, I didn't put oh yeah, here you go. At the end of the day, they were $25. $2.10, $25, one contract, $200. You're at $2,500. You're up $2,300 on one contract alone, just trading with that. On Tuesday, there was nothing I could do. Nothing I could do. Typhoon was hitting me. Tried to give you everything I could while I still had power, while I still had internet. Then when I started getting flooded, there's, again, nothing I can do. So where we went to on Tuesday, where are we here? Boom. Tuesday is when you got your 62.81.71. Right down to that 62.85. Bang. Where did you get there over on your QQQ? Right down there to that minus 560. Bang. But where does it leave us? So what I'm going to do here is move you on to the bigger, broader, wider picture. And what you have, as you see with your compressed range, as you see with everything that we've been going through since the end of World War III, the FOMC meeting is still scheduled to take place on Wednesday, July 30th. It's been scheduled for the better part of 2 years that it's going to be taking place on Wednesday, July 30th. And very similar to what we had take place there in December 18th, an hour before the actual 2 o'clock announcement, I will start getting active and discussing what are some very cheap options to be looking at for 0 DTE for that day. This was the best in history that I have ever actually been involved with, where 75 cents, hour before the FOMC meeting, so call it 1:09 p.m. when it went out, to the end of the day, so less than 3 hours, your $75 went to $12,490. Not going to say it's going to repeat itself, but you have the setup there already with what you've already seen, with Jerome Powell and Donald Trump meeting each other, and all of the stuff about Jerome Powell being fired.
I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving! The show goes on.
So, having covered that subject, I think we can go ahead and move on to the charts. And where I'm going to start you out with is not going to be here, but is going to be here, over on the IWM. And on the IWM, looking at July, the month of July, started out there in the month of July, and then as we went into the 4th of July weekend, here we have been. One dip, that one dip minus 4% going here onto I'm going to fire Jerome Powell, and we have been holding above that 221 consistently throughout. Now, be very well aware that as it is up 32% from the bottom there in April, there is an unfilled gap up above from over there on Thursday. Thursday's gap unfilled, closing over here at 226.68, right around the highs. We have an unfilled gap on the IWM going into this week with 5 green weeks in a row. Come over onto the Dow Jones ETF, the DIA, looking again at the month of July. The month of July having peaked right up here just as we went into the July 4 weekend, not seeing too much action on it. And then as you see with the banks starting to report earnings, a pretty clean A, B, C move to the downside with a 2.5% dip as Donald Trump was going to fire Jerome Powell. From Donald Trump not firing Jerome Powell, you have your move back up into the 450s, which if you zoom out, you'll be able to clearly see where you are back in November, December, January, and February of the beginning of this year and the end of last year. There is a unfilled gap up above from Thursday, which is over here at, Wednesday, over here at 450.24. So a 1.5 higher, as far a 1.25 higher, there's an unfilled gap over there. And you have your unfilled gap from back when the EU deal, Japan deal, all of that stuff. QQQ. And looking at this on a 5-day, only looking at last week alone, and as we went into that play on the SPX puts over on Monday, that went from $2 to $25, as we came in here and we bottomed here early Tuesday morning, a minus 1.3% drop over there on the QQQ, breaking below that 560. Here we are, up at 567.70. And again, not having mentioned as far as the 20-day moving average, but very similar 1 day extra than the SPX on that 20-day moving average with the QQQ. Come into the bigger, broader, wider view of everything and how we have been tracking this move to the upside, going all the way back to April where we were early getting into calls. My QQQ April 17 calls didn't work. I was looking at QQQ 510 calls for April 17th. It didn't work. Had I gone a little bit further out, those 510 calls would be fucking rubbing honey all over your tits. 1, 2, 3 coming off of COVID. So bullish or bearish doesn't matter what you want to be. This being the bigger, broader, wider view of it all, you can simply take this into the 3. You can simply add this because there are duplicate views. There's always a primary view and an alternative view. And this being your wave, nope, not $, it's wave 4. Come on. And then what we have going on here, which I know these numbers aren't going to work, but you have your, I'm not even going to draw them on there because you already have it on all your other charts. You have your 1, 2, and this is your 3. So then you would have your bullish wave 4 dip and then your final wave 5 push to the upside to finish off this wave, which cannot be named until we actually see a top and a bottom, more importantly, where we get our dip. And now we bring you on to the SPX. And what I'm showing you here on the SPX is going back to the 2022 highs where, quite obviously, the algorithms changed because of the decline that we had. And I bring you into here showing you from the January highs of 2022 how we broke below minus 20%. We actually broke below it for a fraction back in May, and we had that immediate bounce because we had gone minus 20%. Then your drop down here into June, where you bottomed right around June 13th, if I recall, and your rally from June 13th into August 16th. From August 16th to October 13th, another minus 20% from the August 16th high. Again, this was a dramatic and fantastic year to be trading, as well as 2021, which brings us on to 2023. 2023, we topped over here on July 27th, and many of you that were here, you remember, I was into the August QQQ puts, and I was only trading the 510, what was it, the 450, 410, I forget what the number was. They wound up being in the money, and I wound up making 900% on that trade. But again, I was in early. I was in early by a couple of days. We've been in this trade now since May, June, looking for the dip to take place, which we haven't gotten. Sticking on 2023 for the subject matter, July 27th was where we topped. October 27th, which you all remember, when Israel invaded Gaza, was where we bottomed. But you see your decline here, almost, well, call it 10%. 10% decline on that, which took the better part of August, September, and October to have that minus 10%. Bring you here into 2024. Where we topped out on July 16th. Again, why everything looked very nicely with the Fibonacci spiral, the full moon that we had going into 2 weeks ago, no decline, no dip. And as we went into August 6th, July 16th, August 6th, I don't have a calendar on my hand, but I know already that's about 3 weeks, you had your minus 10% dip. And here we are into the same July-August period. And here we are going in with 64 closes, 64, 63 closes above the 20-day moving average, now starting to push onto the 1997 streak of I think I recall it's 70, 72 or 73. And here it is, coming off of your last close, being on April 23, below that 20-day moving average. The 20-day moving average has been visited back over here in June, right when World War III was taking place, and we have not even made a glimpse of a view into it. So again, 64 or 63, I don't know what the actual number is off the top of my head, but it is one of the two. Which again brings you back into what I was sharing there in the beginning of the week, talking about these Fibonacci's from the Great Depression and how they were in view, and how, when I discussed it in the video midweek after the close on Tuesday, that these are not touch and go away. You look back at the 161.8, you look at the 261.8, here we are now at the 361.8, which I am not going to sit here and tell you, bet your house on this is going to work. I can tell you that everything is lined up out there for it to work. I can tell you that everybody that I've spoken to says it's going to work. I can tell you everybody that I watch and I follow who are bulls all say the same thing. I'm not telling you it's going to work, but this is an algorithm. It's a video game. And again, zooming in further and further, looking here at the 15-minute since we came down there to I'm going to fire Jerome Powell back on July 16th. We've been holding the 21 EMA essentially the entire way through. We had that minus 1% move almost. Never had any move coming off of that since then. We have what here is still the structure, like I've shared, where we have that 6384, which lines up together with the other two Fibonacci's coming over here from the Great Depression, and we could possibly see as high as 6416. Not ruling it out. It's not out of the books. But it does, again, bring you into that bigger, broader picture of things where you come over here onto the 5-day. And after we had that dip there on Tuesday, which, again, apologize for having the typhoon and, what all took place. But that is where you're at. Your 5-day, looking here on the 5-minute, the EMA, the 21 EMA, you have not been able to get anything breaking, regardless of anything going on. And what you've now wound up with, where, no, I did not put it there, but I will bring it onto here, is your gaps. Just looking at last week, you've got 3 unfilled gaps created last week. You have your Japan deal, the EU deal rumor was midday, boom, and that was where you got your bounce off of that 63, or no, where was it? That was over here, boom. Right over there after we came down to that 63.3476. You saw it work on Monday, you saw it work on Monday, you saw it work again here on Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. And then bam, the EU deal rumor. Boom, boom. We broke above it, supported on it, and that's it. It's just been floating to the upside. Whether we get a deal with the EU or not doesn't make a difference. None of it makes a difference because everything is coming down to Wednesday. Wednesday's the FOMC meeting. Wednesday at 2 o'clock, you're going to hear from Jerome Powell. Excuse me. Wednesday at 2:30, you're going to hear from Jerome Powell. Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we'll know whether there is a rate cut, a rate hike, or pause. You've already seen your video of everything of the interview where, coincidentally, Donald Trump went to go visit the Fed and coincidentally created a brand new, building which was extra on top of the already budget. And Jerome Powell showed, he's not taking any shit. So you can make your own glorified decisions well ahead in advance of yourself. But after Wednesday, July 30th, we will know. And I tell you what, I am not a follower. I am not a believer. But this is something that I came across on my For You. And again, like I say, I am not here. Next week will be the most important week of the year. He's absolutely right about that. It's also the same week that stocks crashed last year. He's absolutely right about that. The FOMC is on Wednesday. Meta and Microsoft earnings are on Wednesday. Amazon and Apple earnings are on Thursday. The PCE inflation report is on Thursday. Jobs are on Friday. Jobs are on Friday? I don't think jobs are on Friday. Jobs aren't on Friday. Because, oh yeah, it is. August 1. And Trump's tariffs are on Friday as well. And as well as what he's discussing here about seeing a minus 20% decline, which I am not calling for. He is talking here about the VIX and where the VIX is. So as I started you out here with the VIX, I will finish you off here with the VIX because right now you've got a 15 VIX. SPX credit spreads, that's going to be hard to get good credit because you're down here well below 16. We held 16 very nicely. We held on to it pretty damn good. And Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we let it go. We let it go, and now that you have your VIX down here, which I'll go back onto a cleaner version of the VIX, you have very, very little to work with. You're now down here on January bottoms. We're coming right onto that 1451, that January, February bottom. Zoom out a little bit more. Let's go for it. We're right here. Right here, here's the Donald Trump elections over here in November, the big spike up. Here's your December. There's your FOMC meeting. We're down here. We're down here on where we have been holding since July of last year. We're essentially on 1 year support over on the VIX. With this 1062 can be, removed, but we have been down there into the low 12s. So it's all lined up. It's all lined up. And all those who are still around, who are going to continue to be around, because those who are gone, unfortunately, they're not going to be back. They're not going to be back for a number of reasons, but I can tell you one thing. The kind of trader that is putting too much effort onto what's taking place every 5 minutes that is not a seasoned trader should be sticking to the 32 trade program and getting their feet wet with the one contract, sticking to it, paper trade it for a month, paper trade it for 150 days.
Eagles can live up to 70 years because they are mentally strong. After 40 years, every eagle has to make a difficult decision. Its claws are no longer sharp enough to hunt. Its beak becomes bent and blunt, and its feathers become thick. The eagle has two options. Either it dies, or it goes through a painful change. This painful change is that the eagle must go to the mountain and crush its beak on a rock until it falls out. When the old beak falls out, a new beak grows in. With the new beak, the eagle rips out its claws, and new ones grow in. Then the eagle plucks out its feathers, and new ones grow in. This painful journey lasts 150 days. But after doing this, the eagle gets a new life. Sometimes we need to get rid of our old self in order for a new and better version to emerge.